Can a classification change the perception of an entire season? What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton, after 19 races without podiums, finally found his place at Ferrari just when they needed him most? Mexico wasn't just the place where Hamilton qualified third. It was the point at which the narrative of the season changed. A respite from a storm that seemed to have no end. And what happened that Saturday in qualifying not only shocked the paddock, but also caused an internal emotional reaction within the team that made it clear that, perhaps, there was still hope for this alliance between one of the greatest drivers in history and the most iconic team in Formula One. Lewis Hamilton's performance in qualifying for the Mexican Grand Prix was not the result of an aerodynamic improvement, nor a revolutionary upgrade package, nor a mechanical evolution that modified the structure of the SF25. It was, paradoxically, the fruit of the absence of all that. Ferrari did not bring any new parts to the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez track. There were no improvements to the diffuser, the spoilers, or the flat bottom. What there was, and was decisive, was a silent but profound transformation in the team's operational approach. And this is where the key role of Lewis Hamilton comes in. Unlike his previous attempts to adapt his driving style to the SF25 without tangible results, something different happened in Mexico. With the car stable and the conditions well understood, Hamilton was able to apply his experience with pinpoint precision. He felt in tune with the car for the first time. It was no coincidence that he himself highlighted in his later statements that the merit was not in the hardware, but in the collective approach, teamwork, and execution. Ferrari understood it too. Vasseur put it bluntly, having Leclerc and Hamilton so close to the front finally opened the door to combined strategies, to tactical games on the track that had not been possible all season because the cars were too far from each other. Simply put, for the first time, Ferrari had real options. Not just one bullet in the chamber, but two. And that, in Formula One, makes the difference between competing and simply participating. This ranking also meant something deeper to Hamilton: validation. Validation that their adaptation process had not been in vain. Validation that I could still perform at the highest level if the pieces of the puzzle aligned. And validation that he had come to Ferrari not as a marketing symbol, but as a competitor willing to lead from experience, patience, and analysis. It was the turning point because it broke the pattern of accumulated frustration. No new parts. No excuses. Just flawless execution. The reaction within Ferrari after qualifying for the Mexican Grand Prix was as immediate as it was revealing. The team not only celebrated a good position on the grid, what they experienced was something much deeper. The tangible feeling that they were finally beginning to understand how to make their project work. It was not a euphoric celebration like that of a victory, but a mixture of contained amazement and structured hope, because they knew that what they had achieved did not depend on chance, but on concrete decisions that were beginning to bear fruit. Frédéric Vasseur, pragmatic and not given to verbal excesses, did not take long to verbalize what was perceived in the garage. He highlighted that it was the team's best classification since the first part of the season. But beyond the statistics, what was really important was how Ferrari had been in the fight since Q1. That detail, which can go unnoticed, was a key symptom. This was neither a last-minute miracle turnaround nor a risky strategy that worked once. It was consistency. It was stability. It was, finally, a complete session without execution errors, without lack of response from the car, without frustrations due to communication between drivers and engineers. Vasseur also highlighted a strategic element that he had not been able to exploit all season. Having both cars in a position to compete for the front positions opened a tactical door that Ferrari had kept closed until that moment. With Leclerc second and Hamilton third, the Scuderia was placed in an ideal position to put pressure on the leader at the start, divide strategies and control the pace of the race, something that only teams like McLaren or Red Bull had been able to do consistently throughout the year. Ferrari, finally, presented itself as a serious threat, not because of the isolated performance of one of its drivers, but because of its collective ability. Charles Leclerc also shared his enthusiasm, although with a more analytical tone. He applauded the car's behavior in low-grip conditions, highlighted how the falling temperatures had benefited them, and noted that both Q3 laps had been solid. But the most interesting thing was his mention of the potential they had by sharing the front row with Lando Norris. Leclerc knew that this position was not only advantageous for him, but also made Ferrari a deciding factor in the race dynamics from the first meter. In short, Ferrari's reaction was that of a team that, after many weeks navigating in the dark, was beginning to see clear signs that its compass was working again. Qualifying in Mexico not only gave them back competitiveness, he gave them confidence. And in Formula One, confidence can be as valuable as a second per lap. The Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez is one of the greatest technical challenges on the Formula One calendar. Its most distinctive feature is not in the curves or the straights, but in its altitude, more than 2,200 meters above sea level. That height has a direct and relentless effect on the car's aerodynamics. At that altitude, air density decreases by approximately 25%, which implies a significant loss of downforce up to 15% in some cases and a reduction in the efficiency of the engine, brake and power unit cooling systems. Faced with this demanding environment, Ferrari adopted a technical strategy that surprised with its precision. Instead of improvising on the fly, the Maranello team opted for a medium-high downforce setup, similar to what had worked on circuits with similar demands such as Singapore, Hungary, or even Barcelona. This balanced configuration aimed at a clear goal: to maximize the stability of the SF25 without excessively penalizing the top speed on the long straights of the Mexican layout. The key to Ferrari's technical success in Mexico did not lie solely in the choice of downforce, but in how that decision was integrated into the overall behavior of the car. Telemetry data collected during practice sessions showed a much more predictable SF25 in slow corners, with a stable mechanical foundation that offered confidence to both Leclerc and Hamilton. This behavior was particularly noticeable in the opening section of the circuit, where the brakes are subjected to intense thermal loading and where a poorly balanced car can easily lose half a second. In that first area, the Ferrari shone. Charles Leclerc, for example, recorded an entry speed approximately 2 km/h higher than Max Verstappen in the area of turns 1 to 3. That difference, in an environment where grip is scarce and every meter of grip counts, is a clear sign that Ferrari had gotten it right in its understanding of the Mexican asphalt. But this performance was not limited to Leclerc. Hamilton, for his part, extracted comparable performance thanks to a much more consistent level of traction than he had experienced in previous races. One of the most striking technical elements was how Ferrari managed to maintain a stable platform without suffering aerodynamic bounce or loss of grip under braking. This suggests that the team not only optimized the aerodynamics, but also the suspension performance, probably by adjusting the chassis heights and compression settings to maximize contact with the asphalt throughout the entire lap. This finesse in the setup allowed the drivers to attack the curbs more aggressively without compromising the stability of the car, a decisive advantage in the most technical corners of the circuit. FP2 in particular left clear signs of progress. While other teams struggled with understeer or unstable setups, Ferrari showed consistent pace both in short runs and in race simulations. The car's response to changes in direction was fluid, the cornering progressive, and the use of tires much more efficient than in previous rounds. Although the SF25 still showed certain limitations in Sector 3, where aerodynamic management becomes more complex, lap times improved consistently. Another no small element was temperature management. In an environment where thinner air compromises the cooling of key components, Ferrari managed to keep both the brakes and the power unit within safe margins without penalizing performance. This suggests that the calibration of the SF25's engine maps and the design of the cooling channels were adapted specifically for the Mexican challenge. In practice, this meant that the drivers were able to push the car without fear of overheating, a crucial advantage when pushing to the limit in a qualifying session. Finally, the SF25 proved to be not only competitive in lap time, but consistent in its behavior. That coherence, knowing exactly how the car is going to react to each corner entry, each load change, each aggressive braking is what differentiates a competitive car from one that is simply fast. And in Mexico, Ferrari achieved for the first time in a long time, that connection between prediction and execution. The setup was perfect not because it was radical, but because it was smart. It was the result of understanding, adapting, and applying knowledge precisely. In a sport where every detail counts, Ferrari gave a class in applied engineering under pressure. What was most revealing was not just the result, but the path that led to it. Hamilton did not find the performance due to an issue external to the team. It was not a weekend of rain that equaled the level of the cars. It was not a mistake by the rivals. It was an internal construction. It was the direct result of collaborative work in Maranello, of a progressive understanding between pilot and engineers, and of a silent maturation that was now beginning to flourish. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.